What's in this thing?
Welcome to another What's in This Thing, where we just want to know what's in this thing. Today I have a quick 2-minute teardown video of a BFG GTX 260. Let's get started. Today we have the BFG GTX 260 Maxcore 55OC. Released in late 2008 with 896 MB of GDDR3, this model is a refresh of the original, with a process shrink from 65 to 55 nanometers, a die shrink from 576 to 470 millimeters squared, a shader processing unit increase from 216 from 192, 8 extra texture mapping units and an additional 3 streaming multiprocessors. Let's start by taking the large screws out from the bottom of the card. With those removed, we can move on to the smaller screws, and finally the screws from the I/O cover. With all the screws removed from the bottom of the card, we can remove the shroud and heatsink and have a look at the PCB. There is some residue left over from the thermal compound and pads, so let's get that cleaned off. Now let's give the rest of the PCB a clean. Now that the PCB is cleaned, let's move on to the shroud and heatsink. First we need to remove the old thermal pads and compound before removing the screws to separate the shroud from the heatsink and fan. Next, remove the fan to have a better look at the heatsink. As you can see, it's very dirty, but the 3 heat pipe design is still obvious, all feeding from the copper cold plate contacting the GPU at the centre of the card. After giving the heatsink a clean on the top and bottom, we can clean the fan, and then finally we can turn our attention to the plastic shroud. This card is a blower style design with a single fan at the rear of the card. This shroud is very dirty, making a mess of my desk. After a clean, we can start to reassemble the card. First the fan onto the heatsink and everything back into the shroud. Don't forget the plastic ring around the copper plate. With that back together, let's have a look at the PCB again. First we need to apply new thermal pads, followed by new thermal compound. Now the PCB can be placed back onto the heatsink and shroud. Finally, the small screws and then the larger screws. With those tightened up, the card is reassembled and ready to go. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this is helpful in some way to someone. Bye for now.